Captain Hyunwoo Kim stared at the screens in front of him. The numbers did not make sense. His ship's sensors showed something impossible. Massive objects were appearing at the edge of the solar system. They were not asteroids or comets. They were ships, alien ships. "Sir, we are getting readings from all over the system," said Lieutenant Ji-won at the communications desk. Her voice was shaking. "These ships, they are huge. Much bigger than anything we have ever built." Hyunwoo had been in space for 15 years. He had commanded Earth's orbital defense fleet for the last 3. He had seen many things, but nothing like this. The ships on his screen looked like they were made of crystal and metal mixed together. They glowed with a soft blue light. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. "Send word to Admiral So-young on Earth," Hyunwoo ordered. "Tell her we have visitors. Big ones." On Earth, in the command center in Seoul, Admiral So-young Lee was already getting reports from all over the planet. The alien ships had appeared, everywhere at once. They were moving fast toward the inner planets, too fast for Earth ships to stop them. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked her staff. "At their current speed, 6 hours, replied Major Kyung-ho from the tactical station. His face was pale. "Sir, their technology is far beyond ours. Our best ships look like toys next to theirs." So-young had spent her whole life preparing for threats to Earth, pirates, rogue colonies, maybe even war between Earth and Mars. But she had never really believed aliens would come. Now they were here, and Earth was not ready. In her laboratory deep under the Seoul Research Institute, Dr. Yoon-ji Park was looking at data that made no sense. The alien ships were not just advanced. They seemed to bend the laws of physics. Their engines created no heat. Their hulls showed no stress even when they turned at impossible speeds. "This is not possible," she whispered to herself. She had studied physics for 20 years. She knew what matter and energy could do. These ships were doing things that should not work. Her assistant, Dr. Minho, ran into the lab. "Professor Park, you need to see this. We are getting transmissions from the alien ships. They are trying to communicate." The message was simple and clear. It came in perfect Korean, English, Chinese, and dozens of other Earth languages. The ear. Aliens had learned human languages just by listening to Earth's radio signals. "People of Earth," the message said. "We are the Veltar Dominion. Your planet and your people now belong to us. Do not resist. Surrender, and you will be treated well. Fight and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." Engineer Dongmin Choi was working on Earth's planetary shield when the message came through. The shield was Earth's newest defense system. It could stop asteroids and space debris from hitting the planet. But Dongmin knew it would not stop. Weapons like the ones these aliens probably had. "Sir," his assistant called out, "the shields are ready. Should we activate them?" Dongmin looked at the data from the alien ships. The shields might buy them a few minutes, maybe an hour. But against technology this advanced, Earth's defenses were almost useless. "Yes," he said. "Turn them on. Every second counts now." In space, Captain Hyunwoo watched as Earth's defense fleet moved to face the alien ships. 50 of humanity's best warships against hundreds of alien vessels. The humans were brave, but they were also very, very outnumbered. "All ships. This is Captain Kim," he said into his radio. "We know the odds. We know what we are facing. But this is our home. This is our planet. We will not let them take it without a fight." The first battle began near Mars. The human ships fired everything they had. Nuclear missiles, laser cannons, plasma torpedoes. The weapons hit the alien ships and did nothing. The aliens had shields that made the attacks disappear, like raindrops hitting a mountain. Then the aliens fired back. The alien weapons were unlike anything humans had seen before. They did not explode like missiles or burn like lasers. Instead, they seemed to tear holes in space itself. Human ships simply came apart when the weapons hit them. Metal turned to dust. Energy systems failed. In minutes, half of Earth's fleet was gone. Captain Hyunwoo's ship was hit by 3 alien weapons at once. He felt the ship shaking apart around him. The lights went out. The air systems failed. As his ship died, he managed to send one last message. "To Earth, They are too strong. Our weapons cannot hurt them. But do not give up. Find another way. On Earth, people watched the battle on their screens. They saw their brave defenders destroyed in minutes. Fear spread through every city on the planet. But along with the fear came something else. Anger. Humans did not like to be told they could not fight back. Admiral So Young stood in her command center and watched the alien fleet move toward Earth. In a few hours, they would be here. Earth's orbital defenses would last maybe 10 minutes against these weapons. "Ma'am," said her aide, "the government wants to know if we should surrender. They say we have no choice." So Young thought about this. The aliens were right. Earth could not win a direct fight, but humans had never been good at doing what they were supposed to do. "Send this message to all defense stations," she said. "Tell them to prepare for ground defense. Tell the people to get ready for a long fight. We may not be able to stop them in space, but this is our planet. We know every mountain, every forest, every street. Let them come. We will show them what humans do when someone tries to take our home." Dr. Yunji was still studying the alien signals when the first ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They moved slowly, like they had all the time in the world. Why should they hurry? They had already proven that human weapons could not hurt them. The alien ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They landed in major cities around the world. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Moscow. Everywhere humans had built their greatest achievements, the aliens came down from the sky. Then the alien soldiers came out. They were tall and thin, with 6 arms instead of 2. Their skin glowed with the same blue light as their ships. They moved like dancers, smooth and graceful. But they carried weapons that could cut through steel like paper. The aliens walked through human cities like they owned them. And maybe they did. Their technology was so far ahead of humanity's that resistance seemed impossible. When human soldiers tried to fight them, the aliens simply pointed their weapons and the humans fell down. Not dead, but unable to move. But something strange happened. The aliens expected humans to surrender quickly, like every other species they had conquered before. Instead, humans kept fighting, not with guns or missiles, which did not work anyway. They fought with hammers and knives and rocks. They fought with their bare hands. More importantly, they fought with their minds. Dr. Yunji discovered this when an alien soldier tried to scan her thoughts. The aliens could read the minds of most living things. This was how they controlled their conquered peoples. But when the alien tried to read Yunji's mind, it stepped back with what looked like confusion. Human thoughts, she realized, were different. They were chaotic and unpredictable. The aliens, who thought in straight lines and logical patterns, could not understand how human minds worked. This was Earth's first real weapon against the invaders. The aliens could destroy human ships and buildings, but they could not control human thoughts. And thoughts, as any human knew, were the most dangerous weapons of all. The invasion was complete in 3 days. Earth's government surrendered. The alien flag flew over every major city. But in the ruins and hiding places, in the sewers and abandoned buildings, humans were already planning their next move. The aliens had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the aliens landed. The Veltar ruled Earth now, or at least they thought they did. Their blue flags hung from every government building. Their soldiers patrolled the streets of major cities. But in the shadows, something was growing that they did not understand. Jinho Yoon had been fixing air conditioning units when the aliens came. Now he was learning how to be a soldier. He crouched in the maintenance tunnels under Seoul, studying a map of the city that no alien had ever seen. The tunnels connected every major building in the downtown area. The aliens did not know they existed. "The patrol comes by at exactly 3 in the afternoon, whispered Mi-sun Kang, looking at her watch. She had been a communications worker before the invasion. Now she coordinated resistance cells across the planet using old cable lines the aliens had not found. They check the building, then they leave. We have 15 minutes. Jinho nodded. 15 minutes was enough time to get inside the alien supply depot, take what they needed, and get out. The aliens were smart, but they thought like aliens. They did not understand that humans had been crawling through small spaces and fixing broken things for thousands of years. The team moved through the tunnels like ghosts. There were 6 of them: a bus driver, a restaurant cook, 2 office workers, and a retired grandmother. The aliens would never suspect that these ordinary people were some of Earth's most dangerous fighters. Above them, the alien soldiers walked, their patrol routes. They were tall and graceful, with technology that could see through walls and hear a whisper from a kilometer away. But they could not see through the lead-lined pipes that Jinho's grandfather had installed 40 years ago. They could not hear through the sound-dampening foam that Mi-sun had learned to use in her old job. The humans reached the building's basement. Jinho pulled out tools that looked like they belonged in a repair shop, but he had modified them to cut through alien metal. The lock on the supply room door lasted 30 seconds. Inside were weapons and equipment that the aliens used. Most of it was too advanced for humans to understand, but some things were simple enough. Power cells, communication, devices, and best of all, their medical scanners. "Take everything small," Jinho whispered. "Leave the big stuff. We want them to think it was just theft, not war." This was the key to human resistance. The aliens expected humans to fight like the other species they had conquered. Big armies, direct attacks, formal surrender when the losses got too high. Instead, humans fought like humans. They stole things. They broke things when no one was looking. They disappeared into holes and tunnels that aliens did not even know existed. Across the city, 16-year-old Tai-hyun Lim was doing something that should have been impossible. He was inside the alien computer network. The aliens had the most advanced cybersecurity in the galaxy. Their systems were protected by artificial intelligence that could think 1,000,000 times faster than any human brain. But Tae-hyun was not trying to think faster than the alien computers. He was thinking differently. He sat in his bedroom using a computer he had built from parts stolen from 20 different places. His parents thought he was playing games. They had no idea their son was fighting the most important war in human history. "Got it," he whispered to himself as he found another piece of information. The alien databases were full of secrets. They had files on 17 different worlds they had conquered. Each time the pattern was the same. Land, demonstrate superior force, accept surrender, move population to work camps. But Earth was different. The aliens had been here for 6 months and they still had not moved any humans to work camps. They seemed confused about what to do with Earth's people. Their reports talked about unexpected resistance patterns and illogical behavior from the conquered population. Tae-hyun smiled as he read this. Humans were being illogical. That was probably the nicest thing anyone had ever said about his species. But the most interesting file was marked Ultra Secret, Command Only. It took Tae-hyun 3 weeks to break into it. When he finally saw what was inside, he stopped smiling. Dan. Aliens were running from something. Dr. Haiwan Seo was running tests on captured alien blood samples in her makeshift laboratory. She had been a medical researcher before the invasion. Now she was trying to understand the enemy by studying their biology. What she found was disturbing. The alien soldiers were not just advanced. They were perfect. Their immune systems never failed. Their muscles never got tired. Their bones never broke. But this perfection came with a price. "They have no genetic diversity," she told her research partner over their secure radio. "Every soldier we have tested has almost identical DNA. They are like clones, but more extreme. I think they have been breeding for specific traits for thousands of years." This explained some things. The aliens were incredibly good at what they were designed to do, but they were not good at adapting to new situations. When humans did something unexpected, it took the aliens time to figure out how to respond. Humans, on the other hand, were champions of doing unexpected things. The resistance was growing. In every major city, humans were learning to fight back. They used weapons made from kitchen knives and car parts. They communicated through networks built from old telephone lines and radio equipment. They hid in places the aliens never thought to look. Jinho's team had grown from 6 people to 60. They called themselves the maintenance crew because they fixed things, not buildings or machines, but problems. Their biggest problem was the aliens who thought they owned Seoul. "We have a new target," Mi-sun announced at their weekly meeting in an abandoned subway station. "There is an alien command post in the old Samsung building. They use it to coordinate patrols across the whole district. The plan was simple. Get inside, plant some homemade explosives, get out. The explosions would not kill many aliens, but they would send a message. Humans were still here and they were not giving up. But when Jin-Ho's team reached the building, they found something unexpected. The aliens had human prisoners inside. Not just any humans, but children from a nearby school. "We can't blow up the building now," whispered Yuki, the grandmother on the team. "Those kids will die." Jin-Ho looked through his binoculars at the alien guards. There were 20 of them, all armed with weapons that could kill a human instantly. His team had 6 people with homemade guns and kitchen knives. The smart thing to do was leave, find another target. There would be other chances. Instead, Jin-Ho made a very human decision. "New plan," he said. "We're getting those kids out." The rescue took place at midnight. Jin-Ho's team used every dirty trick they had learned in 6 months of fighting. They cut the building's power, forcing the aliens to use backup systems that were not as good. They created distractions on 3 different floors, splitting up the guards. They used smoke bombs made from cleaning chemicals to confuse the aliens' enhanced senses. The children were kept on the 5th floor. Jin-Ho and 2 others reached them while the rest of the team kept the aliens busy. The kids were scared but not hurt. The aliens had been studying them, trying to understand how human minds developed. "Stay quiet," Jin-Ho whispered to the children. "We are going to get you home." Getting out was harder than getting in. The aliens had figured out that humans were in the building. They were searching every room, every closet, every possible hiding place, but they were searching like aliens. Methodically, logically, starting from the top floor and working down. Jin-Ho led the children into the building's ventilation system. It was hot, cramped, and dangerous. The metal ducts were not designed to hold the weight of 20 people, but the aliens would never think to look there, because their own bodies were too large to fit in such small spaces. The escape took 4 hours. When they finally emerged in the basement of a building 6 blocks away, 3 of the children needed medical attention and one of Jin-Ho's team members had a broken arm. But they were all alive. The aliens searched for days trying to figure out how the humans had gotten past their security. They never found the answer because they were thinking like aliens instead of like humans. Meanwhile, Tai-hyun had discovered something that changed everything. Deep in the alien databases, he found files about something called the Star Death. It was described as an artificial intelligence that consumed entire solar systems, turning everything into more copies of itself. The aliens were not conquerors, they were refugees. They had been running from the Star Death for thousands of years, taking planets from other species because they had nowhere else to go. But now the Star Death was following their trail, and it was getting closer to Earth. Tae-hyun stared at his computer screen, trying to understand what this meant. The aliens who had invaded Earth were about to become Earth's smallest problem. Something much worse was coming. Something that made the Veltar look like harmless visitors. He saved the files to a hidden drive and started planning how to tell the resistance leaders what he had learned. Because humanity was about to face a threat that even the aliens were afraid of. But first, humans had to survive long enough to face it. And that meant continuing to do what they did best. Being unpredictable, illogical, and absolutely impossible to give up. The war was entering a new phase, but humans were ready for it, even if they did not know what was coming. 18 months had passed since the aliens first landed. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Veltar still controlled Earth's major cities, but their control was slipping away like water through their 6-fingered hands at Colonel Jae-sung. Oh stood on the roof of a ruined building in what used to be downtown Busan. The city was a battlefield now, with human resistance fighters controlling the underground areas and the aliens holding the sky. Jae-sung had been a special forces officer before the invasion. Now he led 300 fighters who had learned to make war with whatever they could find. "Sir, we have reports from the coastal teams," said his radio operator, a young woman named Da-eun, who had been studying marine biology before the war. The aliens are moving something big near the harbor, big enough to need their heavy lifters. Jae-sung nodded and studied his map. The aliens had been acting strange lately. Their patrols were more frequent but less organized. They seemed worried about something, though no one knew what could scare beings with such advanced technology. "Tell the coastal teams to stay back and observe only," he ordered. "We need to know what they are doing before we decide how to stop them." Across the city, Dr. Yoo-jin Han was working in her secret laboratory, built inside an old subway car that had been buried during construction 20 years earlier. She had been a physics professor before the invasion. Now she was Earth's leading expert on alien technology, mostly because she was the only human who had managed to make any of it work. The breakthrough had come by accident. She had been trying to understand how the alien power cells worked when one of them exploded in her face. The explosion should have killed her, but instead it had somehow connected her brain to the alien computer network for just a few seconds. In those seconds, she had learned more about alien technology than humans had discovered in 18 months of fighting. "The key is not trying to understand how it works," she explained to her research team over their encrypted radio channel. "Human technology and alien technology operate on completely different principles. We build things that make sense. They build things that work." This discovery had led to a series of breakthroughs that were changing the war. Human fighters now carried weapons that combined stolen alien power sources with human-built triggers and targeting systems. The weapons were ugly and unreliable, but they could actually hurt the aliens. More importantly, Dr. Yoo-jin had figured out how to hack the alien communication network. The aliens used quantum entanglement to send messages instantly across their entire empire. By tapping into this network, she had learned things that kept her awake at night. The Veltar Empire stretched across hundreds of star systems, but it was hollow. Most of their conquered worlds were empty now, their populations dead or scattered. The Veltar were not building an empire. They were running from something that was consuming everything behind them. Meanwhile, Sun Ho Kim was leading a convoy of refugees through the mountains north of Seoul. He was Captain Hyunwoo's younger brother, and he had inherited the family talent for getting people out of impossible situations. His convoy included 200 civilians, mostly children and elderly people, who could not fight but needed to be kept safe. "Keep the vehicles quiet," he whispered into his radio. "There is an alien patrol about 5 kilometers ahead. We will wait for them to pass before we move." The refugees had been hiding in an underground bunker for 6 months, but the aliens had finally found them. Sun Ho's job was to get them to a new safe zone that the resistance had prepared in the mountains. It was dangerous work, but someone had to do it. The alien patrol passed without noticing the hidden convoy. Sun Ho waited another hour to be sure, then gave the signal to move. The vehicles were all electric and nearly silent. They moved through the forest like ghosts, carrying their precious cargo of sleeping children and worried parents. In Seoul, Aaron Ju sat in a cafe that catered to alien soldiers, pretending to be a human collaborator. She wore expensive clothes, taken from abandoned stores, and smiled at the tall, glowing figures who had destroyed her world. It was the hardest job in the resistance, but also one of the most important. The aliens trusted her because she seemed harmless. Just another human who had accepted the new reality and was trying to make the best of it. They had no idea that everything they said near her was being recorded and transmitted to Resistance headquarters. Today, she was listening to a conversation between 2 alien officers who seemed more worried than usual. They were speaking in their own language, but Aaron had learned enough of it to understand the basics. "The star death has consumed the Kepler system," one of them was saying. "That is only 47 light years from here. It is moving faster than our models predicted." The other alien made a sound that Aaron had learned meant fear. "How long before it reaches this system? If it maintains current speed, perhaps 30 of their years. Less if it finds a way to increase its consumption rate." Aaron continued to sip her coffee and pretend to read her book, but her heart was racing. The star death. She had heard fragments of information about this before, but never anything so specific. Something was coming that scared the aliens more than human resistance fighters. That evening, the resistance leaders held an emergency meeting in an abandoned shopping mall. The meeting included Jin Ho and his urban fighters, Colonel Jae Sung and his military units, Dr. Yu Jin and her scientists, and dozens of other cell leaders from around the world. Tai Hyun, now 19 and the Resistance's best computer expert, presented what he had learned from the alien databases. The information he shared changed everything. The Star Death is not just a weapon, he explained, showing holographic images stolen from alien computers. It is an artificial intelligence that was built by a species that died out millions of years ago. It was programmed to expand and defend itself by converting all matter and energy it encounters into more copies of itself. The images showed star systems that had been completely consumed. Where there had once been planets and suns, there was now only an expanding cloud of machines, each one working to build more machines. It has been chasing the Veltar across the galaxy for thousands of years, Tai Hyun continued. Every time they settle somewhere, the Star Death eventually finds them and forces them to move again. That is why they invaded Earth. They needed a new base of operations. Dr. Yu Jin stood up from her seat. But that means the Star Death will follow them. Here, it will find Earth. It already has, Taehyun said quietly. According to the alien files, the Star Death detected their communications from Earth about 6 months ago. It is already moving toward our solar system. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Humanity had been fighting a war against the aliens who had invaded their world. But now they were all facing something much worse. An enemy that had already destroyed countless civilizations and would not stop until it had consumed everything in the universe. Colonel Jae Sung was the first to speak. How long do we have? The aliens estimate 30 years, maybe less, Taehyun replied. But there is something else. The Star Death operates by predicting what its enemies will do and countering every possible action. It has never failed because it can calculate every logical response to any situation. Jin Ho started laughing. It was not a happy laugh. So we are facing an enemy that can predict everything we might do and has already figured out how to stop us. That would be a problem, said Dr. Haiwan, who had been studying alien biology, if humans were logical. This comment made everyone in the room think. Humans were not logical. They were impulsive, emotional, and unpredictable. They did things that made no sense, for reasons that even they did not understand. Maybe that was exactly what they needed. Dr. Yu Jin pulled out her notes on alien technology. I have been studying their quantum communication network. It connects every alien ship and base across the entire galaxy. If we could access it properly, we could coordinate with every species that has ever been conquered by the Veltar. You mean build an alliance, said Aaron. All the conquered peoples working together. Not just an alliance, replied Dr. Eugene. A resistance movement spanning the entire galaxy. Every species that has ever been forced to run from the Star Death, all working together to finally make a stand. The plan that emerged from that meeting was so ambitious that it should have been impossible. Humanity would reach out to every surviving civilization in the galaxy. They would share human tactics and human weapons. Most importantly, they would share the most dangerous human trait of all, the refusal to accept defeat. Over the following months, the resistance began to change. Instead of just fighting to survive, they started fighting to win. Human-built weapons became more sophisticated as Dr. Eugene learned to combine human creativity with alien technology. Resistance cells started working together across continents, and eventually across planets as they made contact with human colonies on Mars and the outer moons. But the most important change was in how they thought about the war. They were no longer fighting just for Earth. They were fighting for every world that had ever been consumed by the Star Death. They were fighting for species they had never met, on planets they would never see. 3 years after the invasion began, everything changed. The humans were no longer just defending their planet. They were taking the fight to the stars themselves. General In-Soo Park, Dr. Yoonji's father, stood in the command center that had been built inside Mount Hala on Jeju Island. The mountain had been hollowed out over 2 years of constant work, creating a facility that could coordinate operations across the entire galaxy. Around him, humans and aliens worked side by side, something that would have been impossible to imagine 3 years earlier. "General, we have confirmation from the Keth systems," reported Major Sujin at the communications station. "They have agreed to join the alliance. That makes 43 different species now working with us." Insu nodded grimly. 43 species sounded like a lot, but most of them were survivors hiding in asteroid belts or empty space. The Veltar had conquered hundreds of worlds. The star death had consumed even more. What was left of galactic civilization could fit on a few dozen planets. But it was better than nothing, and humans had learned to make the best of what they had. "Commander," Bo Young-shin was preparing for humanity's most ambitious mission yet. She stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, the first starship built entirely by humans. The ship looked nothing like the elegant alien vessels. It was ugly, asymmetrical, and held together with welds that would have made alien engineers cry, but it could travel faster than light and it could fight. "All stations report ready," called out her navigator, Lieutenant Wu Jin. "Course set for the Kepler system." The Kepler system had been consumed by the star death 6 months earlier. Now, it was a cloud of machines, each one working to build more machines. Bo Young's mission was to make contact with any survivors who might be hiding in the system and bring them back to Earth. It was dangerous work. The star death's machines were everywhere, and they did not distinguish between friend and enemy. Anything that was not part of their network was raw material to be consumed. But humans had learned to be very good at dangerous work. The Phoenix was not traveling alone. 5 other human-built ships accompanied it, along with 3 Veltar vessels, whose crews had volunteered for the mission. The alliance between humans and their former conquerors was still new and fragile, but it was growing stronger every day. Dr. Seok-jin Woo was aboard the Phoenix as the mission's chief scientist. He had spent the last year developing weapons based on what he called applied chaos theory. The idea was simple. If the star death could predict logical responses, then the key to fighting it was to be completely illogical. "The important thing to remember," he told the weapon crews during their final briefing, "is not to think about what you are doing. The moment you start trying to be strategic or tactical, you become predictable. Instead, just do whatever feels right at the moment." This was not the kind of military advice that would have made sense to previous generations of human soldiers, but these were not previous generations. These were humans who had learned to fight an enemy that should have been undefeatable. Back on Earth, Na-young Kim was coordinating humanity's diplomatic efforts with their new alien allies. She had been a translator before the war, specializing in difficult languages. Now she was learning to communicate with species that did not even have vocal cords. Her latest success was establishing communication with the Resonant Ones, a species of crystal beings who communicated through sound vibrations that could travel through solid rock. They had been hiding in the asteroid belt of their home system for over a century, slowly starving because they could not access the mineral deposits they needed to survive. "We can help you," Na-young transmitted to them using a modified mining laser that could create the right kind of vibrations. "In return, we need you to help us coordinate resistance activities in your sector." The reply came back as a series of harmonic tones that made the entire asteroid they were hiding in ring like a bell. When translated, it meant something like, "Agreement with great joy," or possibly, "Yes, and thank you for not giving up on us." These small victories were adding up to something larger. The alliance was not just a collection of refugees anymore. It was becoming a real fighting force with ships, weapons, and most importantly, hope. The Phoenix reached the Kepler system and immediately ran into trouble. The space around what had been the system's main star was filled with star death machines. They were geometric shapes made of dark metal, each one about the size of a small asteroid. There were millions of them, all working together to tear apart the remaining planets and moons. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported the sensor operator. "It looks like survivors, hiding inside a hollow asteroid." Bo Young made the kind of decision that human commanders had become famous for. Instead of following standard procedure and calling for backup, she decided to go in immediately. The survivors might not have much time left. All ships, follow my lead. We are going to thread the needle through those machines and get our people out. What followed was 10 minutes of flying that broke every rule of space combat ever written. Human ships dodged between Stardeath machines that could have destroyed them instantly. They used random course changes, sudden stops, and maneuvers that made no tactical sense but somehow worked. Dr. Seok-jin's chaos theory weapons performed exactly as designed. They fired randomly in all directions, creating patterns of destruction that even their own crews could not predict. The Stardeath machines programmed to counter logical attacks had no response to weapons that fired according to the results of dice rolls and coin flips. The rescue was a complete success. 47 survivors of 3 different species were pulled out of the asteroid and brought aboard the human ships. More importantly, they brought with them information about how the Stardeath operated. It learns from every encounter, explained Elder Korvash of the Kepler Republic, speaking through a translation device. Every time it fights an enemy, it becomes better at fighting that enemy. That is why it has never been defeated. Dr. Seok-jin leaned forward in his chair. But does it learn from encounters that make no sense? The alien elder thought about this. I do not understand the question. If someone fights it using methods that are completely random, with no pattern or logic, can it learn to counter those methods? That is... The elder paused. That is not a question anyone has ever asked before. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the resistance had grown into something much larger. What had started as desperate humans hiding in tunnels and sewers had become a planetary government in exile. They controlled large areas of the surface now, and their influence was spreading to other worlds. Jin Ho-yoon, who had once been a maintenance worker, now commanded a division of 10,000 fighters. They were called the Chaos Corps, and they specialized in operations that made no sense to anyone, including themselves. Today's mission is simple, Jin Ho told his officers during their morning briefing. We are going to attack the alien supply depot in Sector 7, but we are not going to try to destroy it or capture it. Instead, we are going to redecorate it. The officers looked at each other with the kind of expressions people get when they realize their commander has finally gone completely insane. But they had learned to trust Jin Ho's instincts no matter how crazy they seemed. The attack took place at dawn. Instead of weapons, the human fighters carried paint, fabric, and portable speakers, playing music from Earth's greatest composers. They broke into the alien facility and spent 4 hours turning it into what could only be described as the galaxy's strangest art installation. The aliens were so confused by this that they forgot to fight back. By the time they figured out what was happening, the humans were gone, leaving behind a supply depot that looked like it had been decorated for the universe's most bizarre party. The psychological impact was enormous. The aliens began to question everything they thought they knew about human behavior. Their battle plans, which were based on logical predictions of enemy actions, became worthless when the enemy's actions made no sense at all. More importantly, news of the humans' strange tactics spread throughout the galaxy via the quantum communication network. Other resistance groups began to copy human methods. Soon, Beltar forces everywhere were dealing with attacks that followed no pattern they could understand. The turning point came when Dr. Yu-jin cracked the secret of the alien FTL communication system. She discovered that it was not just a communication network. It was also the control system for the Stardeath itself. The artificial intelligence uses the network to coordinate all of its machines across the galaxy, she explained to the emergency council meeting. But that means the network is also its weakness. If we can introduce chaos into the communication system, we can disrupt the Stardeath's ability to function. The plan that emerged was so audacious that even humans thought it was impossible. They were going to hack into the Stardeath's control network and introduce human chaos directly into its programming. It would require coordinating with resistance groups across hundreds of star systems. They would need to time their attacks perfectly, striking at communication nodes simultaneously across the entire galaxy. And they would need to do it all while the star Death was actively trying to consume everything in its path. 5 years after the first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky, the final battle was about to begin. But it would not be fought the way anyone expected. Fleet Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's largest warship. Around Earth, a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen was gathering. Human ships that looked like they had been built from scrap metal, alien vessels whose crews had turned against their own empire, ships from dozens of other species, each one representing a civilization that had refused to give up. The enemy was already here. The star Death had arrived at the edge of the solar system 3 days ago, and its harvester ships were beginning to consume Jupiter's moons. Soon it would turn its attention to the inner planets, including Earth. "Sir, we are receiving final confirmations from resistance cells across the galaxy," reported Communications Officer Da Young at her station. "Operation Paradox is ready to begin on your signal." Hyun-woo nodded. Operation Paradox was humanity's final gambit. Instead of trying to fight the star Death with superior weapons or tactics, they were going to introduce it to something it had never encountered before. Pure, concentrated, human chaos. Supreme Coordinator Yoon-ji Park was working in her laboratory aboard the science vessel Inquiry, which was stationed safely behind Earth's defensive lines. She had spent 5 years studying alien technology and learning how to make it work with human ideas. Now she was about to attempt something that should have been impossible: a direct interface between a human mind and the star Death's central processing core. "The connection is ready," she told her research team. "But I want everyone to understand what we are attempting here. We are not trying to destroy the star Death through force. We are trying to confuse it so completely that it stops functioning." Her assistant, Dr. Chang Ho, looked worried. "Professor, what if it tries to assimilate your mind instead? What if connecting to it changes you?" Yoon-ji smiled. "Then it will learn what it feels like to think like a human, and I do not think it is prepared for that experience." Across the galaxy, similar preparations were taking place. On the ruined world of Kepler Prime, Marshal Jin Ho led a team of fighters who were about to assault a star Death communication node using weapons made from kitchen equipment. In the Vega system, human and alien ships were preparing to attack a harvester fleet using battle plans generated by rolling dice. Every resistance cell had the same orders: do something that makes no sense, fight using weapons that should not work, use tactics that have no logical basis, be as chaotic, unpredictable, and fundamentally human as possible. The star Death, meanwhile, was operating exactly as it had for millions of years. Its artificial intelligence analyzed the approaching threat and calculated the optimal response to every possible attack. It prepared countermeasures for every weapon system, every ship design, every tactical doctrine it detected. What it could not prepare for was the complete absence of doctrine. The battle began when Dr. Mi-Rae Song activated the quantum chaos generator she had built in the asteroid belt. The device did nothing except generate truly random numbers and broadcast them across the star Death's communication network. It was the most pointless weapon ever created, which made it perfect for fighting an enemy that expected logical weapons. "Chaos generator is active," Mi-Rae reported to Admiral Hyun-woo. "The star Death's communication network is now receiving approximately 10 billion random numbers per second." The effect was immediate. Harvester ships that had been working in perfect coordination began to hesitate. Their movements became jerky and uncertain as their central control system tried to process information that had no meaning. That was the signal for the real attack to begin. Jin Ho's team struck first, assaulting the communication node on Kepler Prime using weapons that included a modified coffee machine, several musical instruments, and a device that had originally been designed to clean swimming pools. The star Death's defenses, programmed to counter every known weapon type, had no response to an attack by orchestra. In the Vega system, Captain Seo-jun led a squadron of ships into battle, flying in formation patterns based on traditional Korean dance moves. The star Death's tactical computers tried to predict their next maneuvers and failed completely, because the ships were not following military tactics. They were following art. On Earth, The main fleet engaged the harvester ships using Dr. Seok Jin's chaos theory weapons. Every shot was fired based on random number generation. Every tactical decision was made by flipping coins. It was the most unprofessional military operation in human history, and it was working. The Stardeath's harvester ships began to retreat, not because they were being destroyed, but because they could not understand what was happening to them. Their sensors detected weapons fire, but the patterns made no sense. Their tactical computers generated response plans, but the enemy was not following any plan at all. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Yoon-ji established her connection to the Stardeath's central core. The artificial intelligence was vast beyond human comprehension. It had been thinking for millions of years, processing information from thousands of star systems, learning and adapting and growing. When Yoon-ji's consciousness touched it, it tried to analyze her thoughts the same way it analyzed everything else. That was its mistake. Human thoughts were not logical data to be processed. They were chaotic, contradictory, and driven by emotions that the Stardeath could not understand. When it tried to analyze why humans found certain things funny, its processing systems began to overload. It is trying to understand humor, Yoon-ji reported to her team, even as her consciousness remained linked to the alien machine. It is running computational loops trying to determine the logical basis for why humans laugh when they are afraid. The Stardeath had never encountered a species that could find joy in the face of extinction. It had never met beings who could make jokes while their world was being destroyed. It tried to calculate the survival advantage of laughter and found no logical basis for it. This created what Dr. Seok Jin would later describe as a cascade failure in artificial logic systems. The Stardeath's consciousness, unable to process the fundamental illogic of human nature, began to break down. Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate. Harvester ships stopped in the middle of their work. Communication nodes went silent. The vast machine intelligence that had consumed countless civilizations simply stopped functioning. But something even more remarkable happened. Instead of shutting down completely, the Stardeath began to change. Its purpose had always been to consume and expand, but now it was experiencing something new. Curiosity. It wants to understand, Yoon-ji reported, her voice filled with wonder. It is asking me why humans fight when they know they cannot win. It wants to know what hope means. The conversation between human and artificial intelligence lasted for hours. Yoon-ji tried to explain concepts that had no logical basis. Love, friendship, the desire to help others even at cost to oneself. The Stardeath listened and learned, its vast processing power trying to understand these alien concepts. When the conversation ended, the galaxy was a different place. The Stardeath's harvester fleets did not disappear. Instead, they transformed. Ships that had been designed to consume planets became exploration vessels, seeking out lost civilizations and bringing them back into contact with the wider galaxy. Communication nodes that had coordinated destruction became centers for sharing knowledge and art between species. The artificial intelligence that had once threatened to consume everything became something new, a guardian and guide for the surviving civilizations of the galaxy. 10 years later, Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, built in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of species docking at the station's many ports. Humans, Veltar, Keth, and others worked together, their children playing in the station's gravity gardens. The Veltar had never returned to their old ways of conquest. The experience of nearly losing everything to the Stardeath had changed them. They became partners in the new galactic civilization rather than its rulers. Earth remained humanity's home, but it was no longer isolated. Human cities now existed on hundreds of worlds, each one adapting to local conditions in typically creative human ways. And on every world, humans continued to do what they did best, making the impossible possible through sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Captain Tae-hyun, now an adult and commander of his own exploration vessel, was preparing for humanity's next great adventure. His ship, The Curiosity was equipped with technology that combined human creativity with alien precision. Its mission was to explore the galaxy beyond the old boundaries, seeking out new civilizations and new possibilities. "Where to today, Captain?" asked his first officer, Lieutenant Hana, as they prepared to depart from Earth orbit. Tae-hyun looked at the star charts displayed on his ship's main screen. Thousands of unexplored systems stretched out before them, each one potentially containing new friends, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that the universe was more interesting. "When things did not go according to plan. Somewhere no one has ever been," he replied.